This is The Spot, a BYU-Idaho radio production where we talk about what you're talking about. Today's hosts are Sariah Bosted, Natalie Lundquist, and Christian Nelson. The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. Welcome back to The Spot. I am your host, Natalie Lundquist. I'm here with my co-host and a special guest host today. Do you guys want to introduce
Hey,
yourselves?
it's Sariah Bosted again.
I'm Christian Nelson.
We are so happy to have Christian on today because he is pretty knowledgeable about this topic, which we are not.
Absolutely not. I'm so
So today we want to talk about movie plots and ideas. So plots that we've thought of that would make cool movies, books, comic books, songs that could be put out as movies that haven't been yet. So I don't know, Christian, what were your ideas? I know you were thinking of some stuff.
So the first thing that came to mind is something that will probably never happen because Disney owns Star Wars. But there's a really, really good Star Wars book called Star Wars Death Troopers. And the premise is basically zombies in Star Wars. But it's like a little more in depth, but it's just really cool. So basically, like the Emperor and Darth Vader, right? Develop this chemical warfare before the Death Star because they're trying to find a good way to subjugate planets or whatever, and turns out that this thing becomes sentient and controls dead flesh after it's been killed by it. So it's really creepy. It's a really good premise, and the story is super interesting, and the book is really good, but it'll probably never see the light of day unless it's a fan film because Disney doesn't even like anything with Star Wars, like the lightsabers cutting people and stuff. They're very
That's true.
They're very iffy about even that stuff now, which is kind of unfortunate because it's Star Wars.
It's Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's
you
Star
kind of have
Wars.
to have that.
First movie, Obi-Wan cuts off a dude's arm,
Right, yeah.
So, but I think that one would be really interesting because I like it when people take an idea that's kind of established and just kind of flip it a little bit and make it a little more interesting, or just throw something mash the genres together, because Star Wars is it's like action fantasy, and all of a sudden now it's a horror movie basically, right? And I think it kind of helps change the world up and make the world more not livable, that's not a way to put it, but more deep.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
in real life has multiple genres in it. So if you want your fantasy world to be interesting, you should have multiple genres in it, because real life has multiple genres if you really look at it.
Right. It's more broad, for sure.
So when you show all those different situations, it'd just be cool. I think that would be an interesting one. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff that deserves to be made into a movie. Whether that's I don't know if you know what the Thrawn books are, but it's this. It's just this general for the Empire, and he has really good books that are written very well.
Okay.
So
no, that would
that's
be
the first
super
thing.
cool. Because I feel like Star Wars, especially now that it's signed on with Disney, it's gotten kind of predictable in a sense, where it's definitely not as good as the.
It's a little too safe.
It's way too safe, and it's it's the same planet, same genre, same ways of dying, same just everything. So I think throwing that in would be really interesting. I think that would be a super cool fan made film. I think someone that had full creative control, that would turn out really cool.
It's also just really cool to see something that is well beloved, flipped on its head, like you said.
Yeah.
Just slightly off. One thing is different and it changes the whole trajectory of the story.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Sariah, did you have anything?
So we're gonna go in a completely different direction.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with Jane Austen novels, and I think it'd be fun to do.
Does she write the mysteries?
No, that's Agatha Christie.
Okay.
Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dumb segue. Do you know Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do know that one. But
Anyway.
I was gonna go with I want a completely modern retelling of Pride and Prejudice, but everything is kept the same. It's just thrown into like a modern day. Because I think it'd be so interesting to like look at the relationship of Pride and Prejudice through a modern day lens instead of like the Regency period lens, which it's like was beautifully written for that time period, and it fits that time period perfectly. I just think for such a it was kind of like forward thinking for such an old novel,
Definitely.
like how it like gave Lizzie Bennet thoughts, and like how it didn't just make her like, okay, fine, I guess I'll marry you because you're like giving me a proposal. Like they eventually did fall in love. And I think it'd be interesting to look at it through like a modern day lens.
No, definitely.
But like also have like all the same stuff, like the sisters' relationship, the relationship from the side characters. I just think it'd be interesting to look at.
Right. No, I agree. I feel like a lot of people read her work and are like, oh, that would never happen today.
But like
But
totally
it's like, it
would.
totally does.
It totally would.
does.
Because there was a retelling of it, but it wasn't like a full, it was called the Lizzie Bennet Diaries on YouTube. It was like a YouTube series where like it was actors who vlogged, and like they vlogged the series and whatever. And it was so interesting how they flipped it on its head and made it modern. But I want to see it like a full like either movie or TV series, just like go into depth of like the parties, the incidents, the interactions, because it's, I don't know, I think it'd be cool.
I think that would be great because one of my favorite musicals is West Side Story.
Me too.
And all that is modern Romeo and Juliet,
And
right?
it's amazing.
Yes.
Or not modern, it's like 1950s style.
Right.
But modernized.
But modernized. Which I think is, I think it's great. I think it adds a lot. Because it's like you can take this story that kind of contains social issues of its day, and then you can actually like apply it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff still transfers.
Yeah,
you know, you can
there's
just change, it's just a different
definitely.
coat of paint, and you realize, oh, we still make the same mistakes. Like,
right.
If you look at Pride and Prejudice just in general, like there's social class issues, there's issues between like women being able to say like yes or no to a proposal, there's frankly the creepy guy in it, Wickham.
I think that's his name. I don't
Please
know.
don't come for me. I promise I love this book. Wickham, it's like genuinely looking at it through a lens of today, like we would be able to be like, that guy is creepy, but then it's like, oh, he's kind of charming. I can kind of see where they're coming from with him.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, definitely.
I think it'd just be cool.
No, I think that'd be awesome. I think there's a lot of like older books that would be really cool to see transferred. I don't know. Every book I've read, I feel like already has a movie or a modern day like affiliation to it. What I thought would be interesting is like taking a story of like a song and like
Ooh.
turning it into a movie. Like any Taylor Swift song in general, especially like on her new I think it's her new Red album or whatever, the one she just released again. Her All Too Well song, the 10-minute version of All Too Well about Jake Gyllenhaal, I don't know how to say his name, Gyllenhaal, like putting that into just that plot into a movie and just stretching out, like putting more of the facts in there, more of the details in there. I think that would be super cool. You're smiling.
I have
What's
two
up?
full albums that deserve, in my mind, that deserve to have like a theatrical presence or like sponsor behind it.
Okay, let's go.
So
what are they?
the first one is this. So there's this band that I listened to when I was in high school. They're really good. It sounds goofy when you present it, but when you listen to the music, you go, like I get it. There's this band called the Proto Men, and they make rock opera music very similar to Queen, but with a lot more of like an 80s synth over it, because Queen didn't really use a ton of synthesizer.
Right.
But their whole thing is it's a rock opera about this old video game character called Mega Man, right? But they take the story, and rather than it be this kind of like very kid-friendly, like, you know, just whatever adventure, it's like this grim, dark cyberpunk future where like the machines control humanity and like people have to like learn how to rise up because they've become so complacent, almost like WALL-E,
Okay.
but a little more like gritty. And
Interesting.
the albums are really interesting to listen to. I think that would be a really cool like rock opera to see like a musical of it done out. They actually released a 15-minute long music video of 3 of their songs with like really high production value and actors, and it's kind of this proof of concept that was pretty good. There are some things that probably could have been executed better, but like I think that would be really cool because it would be kind of different. It'd be kind of out there, but it would just be interesting to see.
That would be super cool.
And another one is there's this couple band called Dirt Poor Robins. And so it's this husband and wife, and they make, again, kind of rock opera music that's, I can't even follow the story. It's so, like, wild and out there. And that's part of the reason why I'd like to see someone try to, like, staple it down, you know? And, like...
That's funny.
Because I can't even tell what like, it's so hard to keep track.
Make it easier for me. Just make it a movie.
Exactly.
Let me see it.
But the music's pretty good.
I didn't even know rock opera was a genre of music.
That's what Queen technically is.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, like especially Bohemian Rhapsody. That's very like,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Probably like one of the first songs that really like was mainstream in that genre.
See, that makes sense because I never knew what genre that would even fall into. But now I know. Rock opera. You learn something new every day, guys.
Uh-huh.
No, kind of while you were talking, I know you were talking about an album, but it kind of made me think of a movie that's already made that I just want to be remade as like, because it's cartoon, as a live action. Megamind.
You want that live action?
I wanted live action, and hear me out. I wanted to flip. I know, it's so funny. I wanted to flip the genre, and I just think it'd be so interesting to see them take it from like a comedic type of thing to like mystery and action, and like it's deep and brooding, and like I think that would be so interesting to see how that would play out. I don't know why that's the first thing I thought of as you were talking.
I'm just thinking of them painting a poor actor blue and having to deal with that.
Will Ferrell with a big like headpiece.
Well, no, not like you're putting all the characters as is like onto the stage and stuff, but kind of like you have this villain character and normal person, not blue, guys. This villain character, and he's not very good at what he does, but this is the only identity he knows, and going through trying to take over this city. And then you have the hero character who, again, this is all he knows, and he's good at it, but he's not happy. And like, I just think that'd be really interesting to kind of flip the genre and see how someone would put that together in like a live action, modern type of way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, like when you talk about like that, like breaking down the story, like eliminating like all the kooky aspects, like it would be a really solid superhero story.
Yeah, like take away like the comedic like blue man with a fish in a robot suit sidekick, and the freaking news camera guy who's creepy and perverted. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know why that was the first thing I thought of, but I just, now that I'm thinking about it, it just like, I would love to see how someone would like play that out in a totally different direction.
That'd be interesting.
It would be very interesting.
I don't think it would be Megamind anymore.
No.
It'd probably be like a different, you want to call it
you'd have a different name for sure.
Yeah,
but
it'd be its own, that would be its own thing, but like it is cool because like there you have an example of like something that, you know, doesn't really, it's completely different, right? But then you think of it in a different way, or how it could be applied in a different way, and then it becomes a completely new, separate idea or narrative. So,
definitely. I don't know. That was so random. I know.
It was random, but like it makes sense. Like you don't really see. I guess they don't really acknowledge identity crises in like superhero films and stuff.
I haven't seen it, but the Joker movie.
Oh, I've seen that.
The Joker movie
is
does
so
that,
cool.
doesn't it?
It kind of flips it on its head, and like
a little bit. Yeah,
he has a blown identity crisis.
Oh yeah. What did you think about that movie?
I'm gonna be honest. So I didn't watch it in theaters. I watched it in my friend's basement on her TV because we wanted to watch a movie, and she's like, my parents rented The Joker, please come and watch it with me. And I was like, okay.
You know what? There you go.
So we watched it. I liked it. I'm going to be honest, halfway through, I did look up the rest of the plot just to, because I was like, what direction are we going in? Like, I was just confused as to what direction we were going in. And, like, it was interesting to see someone have, like, a full-blown identity crisis.
Fair.
Like, he had an actual mental breakdown.
Right.
I know. It's like, and that's totally fair. Like, I know so many people that are like, I hated it. And I'm like, that's okay. You don't have to like it.
I didn't hate it. I just probably won't rewatch it. Like, it was interesting to watch, but, like, it's kind of just a one-time watch. Like,
and for some people it is. For me, I'm like, I will watch that movie over and over and over for the rest of my life. I don't even care. But I know a lot of people watched it and, like, got mad at the way they presented mental health. And they, like, were like, they took it to the extreme and, like, it's not even realistic and all this stuff. I was like, okay, but no, it is.
In some cases,
In some cases, it is. Like, some people actually deal with that.
Yeah.
Like, that stuff, like, actually happens. It's like, yeah, it's a fun, like, villain story and all this stuff. It's been around for ages, but it's like, that actually happens sometimes.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, the extremities, because, like, especially in film and just, like, entertainment in general, because I think taste is really important, right? Like, when things are done well, it will still land, right? And people will resonate with it. And some people just won't like it because they won't like what's being portrayed.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really say anything about it. But, you know, I understand the premise because I understand who the Joker is.
Right,
and it's like, you know what? There are people who snap that way. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
like, historically.
Exactly.
So,
I don't know. I think a lot of people get mad at it because when they're watching a movie, they want to feel comfortable. They don't want to be given ideas and premises
Kubrick
that are like too extreme outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I think the whole point of that movie was to make its audience uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To be like, this is an extreme thing. This is something that happens.
Yeah. Well, why would you go into a movie called The Joker based on, like, the Joker's, like, history in comics and, like, history in the DC cinematic universe and be like, you know what? I want this to make me feel comforted. Like, obviously it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, he's a villain. I don't know what you're expecting.
Because they probably wanted Suicide Squad Joker or whatever, where it's just some guy who's basically just this action anti-hero with a very strange personality. That's, like, I think a lot of people, like you said, people want to be comfortable a lot of times when they go to a film. And I think sometimes, like, boxing in ideas into, well, what's comfortable and packageable, like, yeah, that's great. That probably services studios and ratings a lot. I mean, look at the Marvel films. You want a comfortable experience that's really fun, go see a Marvel movie. Because most of them are just really fun action movies. Right. Nothing gets too intense.
Same with just, like, anything under Disney. Anything that Disney has signed on. It's just like they put it into a box of ideas. Be like, this is what we can stick with because this is what we know our audience likes.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, it's interesting because I think there are a lot of films. Because, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, like, in the 50s, we weren't this depraved.
Yeah.
You know, like, we weren't this nasty. We didn't show this type of stuff on screen. But it's like, you actually showed, you know, in my film studies classes, a lot of those movies showed way worse ideas and concepts than a lot of modern popular stuff does. I mean, you look at any Kubrick film, that stuff's messed up. Like, especially a lot of his war films. Those things get very dark. I mean, a lot of Tarantino stuff is very dark, right? And that stuff came out 80s, 90s, 70s, 60s.
Yeah.
Well, also going back to, like, the 50s stuff, maybe it wasn't on film, but, like, books, magazines,
dark.
Like, there's some stuff that came out in the 50s, books and stuff that you're like, what on earth were you thinking?
Yeah.
And I mean, and honestly, like, even if the movies weren't that dark in general, that's mainly to do with the technology they had at the time.
Right,
Like
to present it.
the ideas were still there, and it's like the movie. What am I thinking of? Rebel Without a Cause. I don't know if you guys have seen Rebel Without a Cause.
Oh, is that?
Is
What's
that
his
the
face?
James Dean one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a James Dean one. The ideas and topics in that movie are very, like, put forth at the time. Like, they're very extremity, like, hey, this is what's happening. But it's like, with the technology they had at the time, they couldn't really present it in an intense way. Whereas, like, if that movie were remade today, I guarantee it'd be PG-13, if not rated R. Like,
Well,
I was just gonna say, like, going back to like West Side Story as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's that time period as well.
right.
Like,
It's very violent.
Like,
that
very
movie
violent.
gets very like it's
No,
like
for
it starts
sure.
one way, you start rooting in one way, and then it takes the Romeo and Juliet twist.
because it's
you know?
Shakespeare.
yeah.
I mean, spoiler alert: Romeo and Juliet's been out for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think we can spoil that one, but it takes that dark twist, right?
No, definitely.
And but I think that's where you kind of come into the show don't tell.
Yeah.
You know, like line of things where in film, a lot of times we feel like in film, I think the things you don't show can be just as powerful as the things you do show. So there are times where like gratuitous violence and all this stuff, like I have a real problem with most horror movies that come out now because it's literally just a slasher fest. And I get that like Halloween and these movies like popularized that from the 70s and the 80s. But it's kind of like, okay, I get it. Scary monster. It's like a skeleton. It's got blood all over it, and it tears people up, right? And for some things like zombies, it kind of works. You know, that works because that's part of the horror of that type of thing. But I think sometimes the old-fashioned horror, where like you don't see everything, I think it makes it scarier. Like obviously, I think it makes it more engaging for you as an audience member, because instead of like looking at your phone then looking up every once in a while, be like, oh yep, someone's getting destroyed, right? And then looking back down, it's more like you get engaged because you start thinking. And
Definitely.
that's back I guess to the topic. I really want to see a good movie based off of H.P. Lovecraft's stuff. I don't know if you guys know who he is,
Yes.
the writer, but there hasn't been a really solid movie that captures the stuff that he wrote, this like existential horror, like this fear of the unknown. The closest movie I've seen, this really whack movie, it's The Color Out of Space, which is based on a short story that he wrote. It has Nick Cage in it, and it's a good movie, but like it's still a little too hard to follow for I think the average person, including me.
Right.
It was just a little bit like, what? And I think it would be cool to see like a Call of Cthulhu or something
right.
made that really kind of goes back to that. You don't need to show, you know, all these deaths on screen to create a sense of horror or dread.
Yeah.
It's more about what you don't know that freaks you out. I think that would be really cool to see.
That would be super cool. I didn't really think about that one. I don't know. Do you have anything else,
I do. They're kind of, again, my ideas were dumb. And this is mostly because I think it's super funny. I want to see a Shakespeare, period accurate Shakespeare film, but I want modern music to be the soundtrack. I think that is hysterical.
That would be so
I think
funny.
throwing modern day songs in like plays and stuff that were written way, way back when is so funny. Like as an audience member, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, what am I listening? I think it's hysterical personally.
Oh, that would be so funny. I don't know. When you say that, first thing that comes to mind is like throwing like, what is it, 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars into like Othello or something. Like finding a way to throw that in. That would be hysterical.
Like it's not an idea or anything. I just think it's funny to make a soundtrack for like a period piece modern, because I think it's funny.
One of the weirdest dance scenes I'd ever seen in a movie is like A Knight's Tale. I don't really remember that movie very much, but I remember very clearly this one scene because I totally embarrassed myself when it happened. But they started dancing, and it's like at a ballroom, and it's like, you know, like it's like medieval time, and they start playing Golden Years by David Bowie, and I love Bowie, so I was like, oh my gosh, it's Golden Years by Bowie. And literally everyone watching the movie just like looks over at me like, okay, thank you for sharing. Like I got a little too excited, but it was because I just didn't expect it. I was just like, what?
It's
like,
so funny.
It was
That
so
is hilarious.
out of place.
Because, so like, I didn't watch it, but apparently in Bridgerton during the ballroom scenes, they would do like orchestra versions of modern songs.
They do.
And like, it's funny to like be watching like this dramatic scene with like period accurate English and then hearing, is that Wildest Dreams by Taylor Swift in the background? Or like something, like it's so, because it takes you out of the story, but in like a funny way.
Yeah. And it's funny because you don't immediately catch on to it. Because like hear it, you're like, oh, this is so pretty. And then you're like, wait,
I know this song.
I've heard that somewhere. And it's actually funny because something like that happened, not even watching a movie or anything, but I was in the car with my sister yesterday and we were listening to the Piano Guys. And, you know, they do a lot of covers. We're listening to a song and my sister's like, hey, do you guys know what this song is? And I'm like, no. And she shows us, and it was Wake Me Up Before You Go Go.
Oh my god.
But they slowed it down so much that it doesn't even sound like that. And I'm like, what the heck? But it's like, yeah, it's incredibly funny, like taking modern songs and doing that.
Because like, you're always told like you don't want to take people out of the story. You don't want to make people like self-aware that like,
right.
But it takes people out of the story in such like a unique way that no one gets really upset by it. They're more just bewildered.
Right.
And they're like, I'm sorry. Huh?
Yeah.
I just think it's funny.
No, definitely.
I think that would be interesting to try to execute. I think it would be cool. This is something I've wanted to do, but like I really love the use of licensed music in films like Guardians of the Galaxy. Or like I love like Vietnam War movies. They always have really, really killer soundtracks because the music at that time, a lot of it was about the war. And it was just a different culture kind of popping up. It was really kind of shaping our modern culture at the time. And so you actually had a lot of music for that. But like in the 40s, no one was singing about, like there were some songs about World War II, but there was never any like social commentary in the songs. A lot of it was mostly just like, help our boys, you know, help them go win, you know, and kind of glorifying the joining the military and doing all these things and fighting the Nazis and, you know, because it's just a different time, different group of people. And then the 60s come around and you have this like total shift, right? Where it's like you have people who are pro, you have people who aren't. You know, and so the music world is kind of clashing, and there's all this different, very social commentary style songwriting going on, and so it fits really well for, you know, these movies about guys who basically get drafted and are kind of forced to be there, or maybe even joined and want to be there, and so they kind of, you know, listen to the song as like a rebellious badge of honor, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it would be cool to see something like that today, where you maybe like, I don't know, just like implement more licensed music. I think that's like a really underutilized tool, probably because it's hard to do though, honestly.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But yeah,
that would be super cool. Thank you guys so much for joining us. That was our wonderful talk of movies with our wonderful guest host. So this week's positive quote for you guys is by David Viscott. It says, if you have the courage to begin, you have the courage to succeed. Just think about that as you're going on your week, and we thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
goodbye.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Spot, a production of BYU-Idaho Radio. Today's hosts were Sariah Bosted, Natalie Lundquist, and Christian Nelson. The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. This episode was edited by Natalie Lundquist. Producers were the hosts with supervision by Brandon Isle. Our theme music is Finding Happiness by DJ Quads and The Perpetual Ticking of Time by Artificial Music. To listen to more episodes of The Spot, like and follow us on social media media or visit our website, byui.edu/radio, and click podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to the BYU-Idaho Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get podcasts. And also leave a review of the show and leave a comment on what we should talk about next.